money is our time and energy in an abstracted form. I talk about it's human effort, it's labor. Like we all get up, we do stuff, and in return for that, we get money. So by proxy, when a government debases our currency, they're debasing you. You get less housing, you get less family, you get less food, you get less gas, you get less energy, you get less life. And so when you look at KPIs, key performance indicators of our species, divorce rates up, obesity rates up, child per woman crashing down, population growth crashing down, and it's like the government can tell you all these things about future growth and how they're going to fix the deficits and everything. You can't print 18-year-olds. It takes 18 years to make an 18-year-old. And so we want people to be having more kids. We want people to be living longer. We want people to be healthy. We want people to be married. And so I think these all have to do with the money being broken fundamentally. And we talk about Bitcoin 63% growth every single year. The US is looking for growth. We're talking about debt to GDP, right? We're borrowing all this money without the growth to pay it back. With Bitcoin, you could literally buy growth off the shelf.
Jack Mallers begins by asserting that Bitcoin is the best reflection of how bad fiat currency has become. He emphasizes that the destruction of fiat currencies driven by government deficits and money printing is the primary catalyst for Bitcoin's adoption. Governments, according to Mallers, have placed themselves in a debt spiral, a cycle of borrowing and debasement, which continues to erode the value of their currencies. He argues that if governments wanted to slow down the rise of Bitcoin, they would need to spend less or return to a gold standard. However, even in such a scenario, Mallers believes Bitcoin would still emerge victorious, though at a slower pace.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Bitcoin's the best expression of currency debasement. Bitcoin equals technology plus fiat liquidity. So I think a lot of the growth is driven by the destruction of fiat, is the level of deficits and the debt spiral that I think we're probably already in. So I think that's the net catalyst, the overall catalyst. If governments wanted to slow down the adoption of Bitcoin, they could spend less and go back on a gold standard. It wouldn't kill it and Bitcoin would still win, but probably slower. So the pace at which this is evolving is entirely driven by the destruction of the currency and the debasement of the currency. And I think Bitcoin is literally the antithesis of fiat. It's the best expression. If you want to see how bad fiat really is, pull up a Bitcoin chart. Don't look at the CPI. So that's on net. What I think about it, what I think is interesting about America, with El Salvador, it was a huge deal that a nation state, that a country removed their relationship with the people of money. It's literally the separation of money and the state, and which is why I think a lot of us in this room are interested in Bitcoin. And really, at the end of the day, money is our time and energy in an abstracted form. I talk about it's human effort, it's labor. We all get up, we do stuff, and in return for that, we get money. So by proxy, when a government debases our currency, they're debasing you. Not the money itself, but all your effort, all your time, all your energy. Money, in theory, should represent your contributions to society in a perfect system. And so the fact that El Salvador said, we don't want to have an influence on that relationship, we don't want to be a part of that relationship, we want that relationship to be up to the free market, because when the US government debases the dollar, they're debasing me and all the time, energy, effort, and labor that I've put into my life in acquiring these dollars. So the fact that El Salvador did that's why it was a monumental step. But they didn't have the ability to print their own currency. They lost their own currency in their own civil war. They were on the dollar. And so I think the next big step would be if a government that has the ability to print and debase and uses a central bank to manipulate and control and influence the time, energy, effort, and labor of the populace and of society, if a government that has that power is able to buy Bitcoin and acknowledge it, not even the legal tender part, just acknowledge it, own it, and validate it, that would be a huge deal. And I actually think the United States of America is probably in the best position to do that, and where I think they're the most likely candidate because they have the world reserve currency. Like the US is like, we're broke, like we just issued debt, like we're, you know, being the world reserve currency implies that we run these massive deficits and we issue all of this debt, right? And so we are the most incentivized to actually start backing our future promises with something real. So I told, you know, my chief of staff is somewhere in the audience. I told him, like, after El Salvador, people would ask me, you know, what's the next? Is it, you know, Guatemala, Argentina? Everyone was like looking on a map, looking through Latin America. I said, you know, it might be the United States. Bitcoin's very American, and the United States, in theory, is technology, innovation, inclusion, equality. Every node on the network is treated equal. You can come and go as you please. So maybe I'm manifesting a little bit. Maybe this is less of a prediction, more of a hope. But I think that would be a really big deal. And as big of a deal as El Salvador was, the next step would be a government that actually can print their money and debase the populace through money printing. If they were to say this Bitcoin thing's legit and we should have some, I think that'd be massive. Because if they're debasing the currency, they're debasing you. You get less housing, you get less family, you get less food, you get less gas, you get less energy, you get less life. And so when you look at KPIs, key performance indicators of our species, divorce rates up, obesity rates up, child per woman crashing down, population growth crashing down, you know? And it's like, the government can tell you all these things about future growth and how they're going to fix the deficits and everything. You can't print 18-year-olds. It takes 18 years to make an 18-year-old. And so we want people to be having more kids. We want people to be living longer. We want people to be healthy. We want people to be married. And so I think these all have to do with the money being broken fundamentally, and the government's ability to debase us through currency printing. And so if the United States were to acknowledge Bitcoin, support it, own it, and we would have a sitting president or government or whatever that supports the industry, I think as the world reserve currency issuer, I think that'd be as big a deal as I could have ever dreamed of when I got into Bitcoin.
Mallers discusses how Bitcoin serves as a solution for everyone, from Wall Street investors to those living under oppressive regimes. Bitcoin is a decentralized, permissionless form of money which allows individuals to store their time, energy, and labor in a way that cannot be manipulated by governments or financial institutions. Mallers praises Bitcoin's founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, for creating a system that is owned by the people and cannot be controlled by any central authority. He contrasts Bitcoin with gold, pointing out that while over half of the world's gold supply is owned by governments and central banks, only about 4% of the Bitcoin supply is held by governments. This decentralization makes Bitcoin a uniquely democratic form of money, one that empowers individuals and protects them from the negative effects of currency debasement.
She's not necessarily proposing that we print a bunch of dollars to buy Bitcoin. She wants to take the excess reserves at the federal banks and reallocate out of gold and into some Bitcoin is the initial proposal. And to me, the proposal is like, listen, we have to start backing our future promises with something real. And we talk about Bitcoin 63% growth every single year. The U.S. is looking for growth. We're talking about debt to GDP, right? We're borrowing all this money without the growth to pay it back. With Bitcoin, you could literally like buy growth off the shelf. It's like you know, you just like, oh yeah, I'll take a sandwich, a Coke Zero, and oh, that thing that grows 63% a year. And so it's like, we have a growth problem. We're not growing enough to back our future promises, and we need to signal to the world that we acknowledge and we care about these things. So yeah, I think I think America is very well positioned given the, reserve currency status, the deficits, who we've been as a country, to lead that. And I think a lot of people are looking for us to make that move well. So we'll see. But her proposal is not to print money and buy Bitcoin, which I think is interesting. It's not as like destructive to the dollar. That would be pretty anti-dollar. I think of Bitcoin as money, and money being the market good that you acquire to save and exchange your time, your energy, your effort, your labor, right? So a cheeseburger is also a market good. An airplane is a market good. You get on the airplane to travel. You consume the cheese, or you acquire the cheeseburger to consume it. You acquire the money to store it and exchange it later. It's the technology we use to take our effort today and bring it to tomorrow. And so that's what Bitcoin is, plain and simple. That's a technology that all humans need, both on Wall Street and those that are at the cypherpunk manifestos in San Francisco. So it's permissionless money, so no one's allowed to tell anyone they can't use it. And so my expectation is, if you are a human being and you need to store your time and energy, and you need to save and exchange it for things, that you're naturally going to use Bitcoin. So I think it's inevitable in that respect. I also think for those that feel threatened by Wall Street, there's a very nuanced, we should be thankful for Satoshi Nakamoto for all sorts of reasons. One of the more impressive, in my opinion, is how Satoshi launched Bitcoin. I'll say it that way. In that Satoshi Nakamoto did not take Bitcoin to Goldman Sachs to take it public. Satoshi Nakamoto did not list it on the New York Stock Exchange. Satoshi Nakamoto didn't put it on Product Hunt. Put it on an email list and just leaked it. And for that reason, Bitcoin is owned by all of us, by the people. So over half of the gold supply is owned by governments and central banks. I think governments own only 4% of the Bitcoin supply. You've got Michael Saylor, who's borrowing as much money as a human being could possibly borrow. This guy's got billions of dollars of debt, and he's trying to own as much Bitcoin as he can, and he's barely eclipsed only 1%.
Jack Mallers presents a compelling argument for why Bitcoin is the best expression of the failings of fiat currencies. He highlights how the destruction of fiat, driven by government deficits and money printing, has led to a growing demand for a decentralized alternative. Mallers sees Bitcoin as the solution to many of the problems caused by fiat debasement, and envisions a future where countries like the United States embrace Bitcoin as a means of securing their financial future. Bitcoin, as Mallers argues, is not just a form of money. It's a tool for preserving the value of human effort and labor in a world where fiat currencies are rapidly losing their worth.
Please like and subscribe my channel.